The boardroom fell silent as the CEO stared at the deadline clock. "Get it running by dawn, or the whole line is canceled," she said. Then she turned to the man in the grease-stained coveralls. "Sit down, Tommy. This isn't a job for the night janitor." She had no idea the janitor she had just dismissed once designed the very flight control logic that kept her company alive. What was hiding inside that dead engine? 2 years earlier, Tommy Ruiz had traded his lieutenant colonel bars and 312 combat sorties for the night shift at Summit Dynamics. He needed the quiet hours so his 8-year-old daughter could wake up to her father already home, cereal poured, lunch packed. A folded American flag from his last tour stayed tucked in his toolbox like a promise he would never break. For 17 straight nights, the flagship prototype sat cold in Base 7. 3 outside consultants in pressed khakis had burned through $480,000 swapping sensors, rewriting code, chasing phantom voltage drops. The client from Seoul had wired the first $60 million milestone and threatened to pull the remaining 9 aircraft if the demonstration flight didn't lift off at 0600. At 2:14 a.m. on the 18th night, the room smelled of burnt coffee and desperation. The lead consultant, wearing a Patek that cost more than Tommy made in a year, snapped, "We don't need suggestions from the mop crew." Tommy said nothing. He simply watched the grounding stud on the right engine nacelle the way a pilot watches instruments in a storm. He had kept his own log for 17 nights. Exact RPM at cutoff, the precise click of the fuel shut-off solenoid, the tiny vibration that arrived a half-second too early. Every reading pointed to false data reaching the computer before any real mechanical fault. One missing page in the revised manual told him exactly which page had been quietly deleted. The electrical bond verification check worth 30 seconds of work. When the CEO finally admitted the jet would not fly, Tommy stepped forward. "5 minutes," he said. Laughter rippled across the engineers. The consultant rolled his eyes, but the CEO, cornered, gave a tired nod. Tommy isolated power, slid a multimeter probe onto the grounding stud, and felt the faint polymer disc slide free beneath his thumb. A clear, insulating washer that belonged nowhere on that aircraft. He held it up so the entire room could see the pristine paint beneath it, proof that zero current had ever reached the engine body. He cleaned the contact, torqued the bolt to the exact foot-pound spec from the original drawing, and stepped back. The engine spun up clean. At 33% RPM, the fuel valve stayed open. The hangar filled with the deep, steady roar that had been missing for nearly 3 weeks. No one spoke. 17 days of sabotage unraveled in the next 48 hours. The consultant had been feeding doctored invoices through 3 shell suppliers he controlled. Each overpriced part carried a neat $10,000 kickback. A cloned badge, a deleted security file, a planted deposit in Tommy's account, all designed to frame the quiet janitor when the crash came. At the emergency board meeting the next morning, every senior manager who had smirked at Tommy sat in the same room. The consultant stood at the head of the table in his spotless Italian shoes, still trying to shift blame. Then the independent audit landed on the projector, every deleted log, every timestamp, every fabricated wire transfer. The consultant's shoulders dropped. He looked at Tommy for the first time without contempt. In a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I was certain the company was going to be sold anyway. I chose the side I thought would win." Later, alone in the hallway, he offered a private apology that carried real weight. 6 months later, the entire workforce gathered again on the same apron. The 9th aircraft in the order taxied out, engines singing. Tommy's daughter stood beside him wearing the tiny set of wings he had carried since his last tour. She slipped the folded flag from his toolbox into his palm, the cloth still soft after all these years. The CEO stepped to the microphone in front of every employee. She admitted the near collapse had never been about money or technology. It had been about pride that refused to listen to the one man who actually understood the machine. Tommy never asked for applause. He simply went back to the night shift, made sure his daughter's lunchbox was packed, and left the hangar each dawn carrying the same grease-stained toolbox. Because the smallest voice in the room is often the only one still paying attention. And sometimes 5 quiet minutes are enough to save everything that matters.